All right, folks, so this is a brand new Garmin Instinct Solar that adds solar charging, an updated heart rate sensor, as well as some other new features to the original Garmin Instinct. And this isn't the only new watch that Garmin's launching today. They're also launching the Fenix 6 and 6S Pro Solar models that come with even more additional features, and I'll have that video linked down in the description below, so go ahead and check that out once you're done over here. So I reviewed the original Garmin Instinct that was launched well over a year ago, and it took a lot of people by surprise, including myself, and it's become a really popular device. It's got some distinctive looks to it that a lot of people dig, and a pretty solid feature set that works for a lot of folks, from the casual athlete all the way up to the full-blown adventurer. And today Garmin's launching the Instinct Solar that adds even more features to the original Instinct. So I've been testing the Instinct Solar out for the last few weeks or so, and I do have some initial test data to share, but this isn't going to be the full-blown review video. I'll have an in-depth long-term review out later on down the road, so make sure to subscribe to get a notification when that video comes out. Oh, and by the way, if you liked the video or if you found this video useful, make sure to hit that like button down below, as it definitely helps the channel a lot, and I appreciate it. First off, let's talk about the biggest new feature, the solar charging. So what you'll notice is that Garmin added solar panels to the Gorilla Glass display, which you can see compared to the original Instinct, and this is going to extend the battery life massively over the original. And then you'll also notice the new complication on the watch face, which shows a graph of the solar intensity for the last 6 hours. And then there's also going to be a new solar intensity widget, which shows more detail, but there's also this sun icon in the upper right-hand corner that shows the current solar intensity level with these little bars that surround the sun. The more bars you have, the higher the intensity level. When it comes to battery life, Garmin claims that you're supposed to be able to get up to 24 days out of it in smartwatch mode. So basically not using it for any GPS activities. And that's up from the 14 hours of the original Instinct. However, if you add in some sunshine, you're supposed to be able to get up to a whopping 54 days out of it if you expose it to direct sunlight for about 3 hours per day. And then when it comes to GPS battery life for tracking outdoor activities, Garmin has increased that as well. So with the original Instinct, you're supposed to be able to get up to 16 hours. With the Instinct Solar, you're supposed to be able to get up to 30 hours. However, go ahead and toss in some more sunshine, and then you're supposed to be able to get up to 38 hours out of it. And again, you're supposed to be in like direct sunlight in certain conditions. And in terms of how these claims actually hold up, well, I have already done some tests, so here's what I can report on so far. So on this 2-hour ride, I started with a 100% charge, and you can see from the solar intensity widget that it had pretty decent sun exposure for most of the ride, but not full intensity by any means. And then at the end of the ride, the watch had 95% of the battery left. And if we do the math, that's actually right in line with the 30-hour claim, if not a smidge over. And then here's another ride that I just got back from that was, again, right around 2 hours. And this ride was a little bit sunnier for the most part. And again, we see very similar results. So the battery claims seem to be holding up. And just to note, these tests were done with the default settings, which is using wrist-based heart rate, and GPS plus GLONASS using the smart setting for GPS data recording intervals. But one setting I usually do like to change on Garmin devices is to change it from the smart setting to 1-second GPS interval recordings, as that generally yields the most accurate results. And by the way, the smart setting usually works just fine. It's just that the 1-second GPS recording intervals is going to be the most accurate. But with the 1-second interval recordings, it uses a bit more battery. And on this 1-hour ride where I had tons of sunshine, it used about 4% of the battery. So using the smart setting will definitely get you much better battery life. And then just a note, here's going to be the results from that 2-hour ride using the smart data recording setting. And again, in most scenarios, the smart data recording intervals would work just fine for almost everyone. But along with the solar charging, they've also added the power manager that we've seen on the Fenix 6 line of watches to add different modes where you can extend that battery life even further by enabling and disabling features that you may or may not need. So for instance, in this battery saver mode, which is a non-activity based mode, they advertise that you can get up to 56 days out of it even without any exposure to sunlight. But then if you do get on the sun for 3 hours per day, they say that the battery life can be indefinite. But then there's also going to be power modes that you can use during an activity where you can extend the GPS battery life from the base level 30 hours all the way up to 28 days, depending on certain features you can enable and disable, such as the heart rate sensor and the GPS sampling rate. For instance, they have a couple modes that are already built into the device. So there's going to be a max battery mode, which uses the ultra track mode for GPS data recording intervals, disables Bluetooth and disconnects the watch from your phone, turns off the wrist-based heart rate sensor, and then turns off the pulse oximeter, which is part of the heart rate sensor. It disables the breadcrumb map, enables a timeout mode for the display, turns off the backlight, and disables all the accessories. Then there's also a jacket mode that has some different settings enabled and disabled. And then what you'll notice is that it will display the estimated battery life in each mode in the little cutout window right here. But you can always set up custom modes too. So here's one that I have set up that I call trekking that has some slightly different settings. It's really easy to set up these custom modes and then you can name them whatever you want. So that's the new solar charging and power management modes that come with the Instinct Solar, but they also updated the heart rate sensor in the back to be the latest generation Elevate heart rate sensor that also includes an SpO2 sensor for measuring blood oxygen levels. And then on the activity tracking end of things, you'll still get all the same activity profiles that came on the original Instinct, and there are just a ton to choose from, including open water swimming and some outdoor recreation profiles like skiing, snowboarding, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, and even plenty of gym-based profiles. But Garmin's also added the fish and hunt activity profiles. With the fish activity profile, it shows some basic data screens where the first one shows the time of day, sunrise and sunset times, and also notice this little fish counter in the data cutout window. And then a second data screen shows a breadcrumb map of your location. When you press the start button, it'll provide you with a few different options to start fishing. You can save your current location. There are fish timers. You can see your saved locations. Then there's going to be navigation options such as going back to your start location, and then just a general activity settings. Anyhow, let's go ahead and start fishing. So when you press the start key again after you've started fishing, it has an option where you can log a catch where it'll save the location and that you caught a fish. Notice that the fish counter goes up by 1. And then you can just press the start key again, and here's where you can end the fishing session if you're done. With the hunt activity profile, this will be very similar to the fishing profile where it has the 2 basic data pages. And then when you press the start key, you can start the hunt, you can save your location, you can view your hunt locations, your save locations, those navigation options, as well as the general settings. And then during your hunt, if you press the start key, here's where you can save the location, and it has a ton of different options for classifying that location, including tons of stuff that I don't necessarily understand. Anyway, for those of you that do hunt, I'm sure all of this makes sense to you, but it looks pretty comprehensive to me. And then one last profile that the Instinct Solar gets is going to be the Expedition profile that's designed to record multi-day activities where it can last up to 28 days without any solar exposure, but up to 68 days if you're in the ideal solar conditions. It disables all the sensors and accessories, and then track points will only be recorded once an hour to get that level of battery life. And then just like the original Instinct, the new Instinct Solar will be built to military grade standards. It'll be thermal, shock, and water resistant down to 100 meters. It pairs with inReach satellite devices. It's extremely comfortable to wear, and it comes in tons of colors. The solar version of the Instinct is going to run you $100 more than the original Instinct. So this one's going to run $399. And then there's going to be some other versions that are going to be available, including a camo version, a tactic version, as well as a surf edition model that all run $450. The tactic version, which I don't have in front of me, adds night vision compatibility. It has a stealth mode where that actually stops sharing and storing GPS coordinates, and then it'll actually disable all the wireless communications coming to and from the device. It also has dual position formatting, as well as a jump master profile, which is used for jumping out of perfectly good airplanes. And then the Surf Edition has tide data that's available on the watch itself, and then it also has a dedicated surf activity profile that'll record your speed, distance, and number of waves surfed. So I think it's great that Garmin has brought the solar charging capabilities that was originally found on the Fenix 6X Pro Solar down to the Instinct line of watches, and while they're at it, they went ahead and increased the battery life significantly even without the solar charging, and they also updated the heart rate sensor. The original Instinct, I think it was a really popular device because it was a solid alternative for somebody who wanted a nice durable device like a Fenix that had a lot of activity profiles but couldn't necessarily stomach the price tag of a Fenix. However, if you can stomach the price tag of a Fenix, well, Garmin has also updated those as well, the Fenix 6 and 6S Pro solar models that adds that solar charging capability, as well as some other new features. So make sure to check out that video that's linked down in the description below. Anyhow, I'll be continuing testing the Instinct Solar, so make sure to subscribe to get updates on this guy. And if you like the video, make sure to hit that like button down below. Anyhow, in the meantime, have fun, stay safe out there, and we will see you in the next video.